All right, we're live to Facebook. Give people just a minute to tune in, check the notifications, load up the live stream. Good evening and welcome back to Kyle Hooten Live, presented by Alpha News. Tonight we're joined by a repeat guest to the show, a man who actually hosted for a while I was away, Devin Foley. Devin is the co-founder and CEO of the Charlemagne Institute, which operates Intellectual Takeout. Devin, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Kyle, happy to be here. So it's good to see you. Welcome back home to the Middle America. So Good to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I want to open tonight's discussion by reading something from a piece you recently authored called "I'm the Last One." And, very rarely do I read commentary, but I read this commentary and it blew me away. Bear with me here for just two sentences. You write, "We occupy a strange and alarming moment in history. Quite a few people have a sense of foreboding doom that follows them throughout their days. For me, it seems as though we are being herded towards something evil that will likely mark the end of an age." A grave and very important statement. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but first I want to get your thoughts. What age are we in and why is it ending?
So I am if you go through the historians and the philosophers and all of that, you get in fights over things like that.
Yeah.
When I just look at it broadly as a normal layperson, I see that it just strikes me that the modern age, let's say Treaty of Westphalia, 1648, the end of the religious wars and the birth of the Enlightenment, that is coming to an end. Because if you look at the Enlightenment era, it took from the medieval period, which had the soul, reason, and then flesh. The Enlightenment said, no, reason can do it all. And so reason is what's supposed to be above both soul and body and flesh. And if you look at that, the boomers, I think, are perhaps the last generation that has that mindset. We've moved into a postmodern world, which means that reality isn't real, that we create our own truth. And you see this everywhere, even the transgenderism. It's, well, my body is my body and I can do what I want with it, and it shatters it. And so this idea that there is a moral, objective, natural order to things is dying, is dead for much of America and the world. And so it is that age that's dying, and we're going into something new, something most likely rather chaotic and dangerous, because it's really putting the will and your emotions above both your soul and reason. And that's kind of a rather big deal when you think about everything that happened in the last 500 years or so. But something is happening right now. We're drawing to the end of an age. I just don't, talking to people, you don't really think, or you don't really, the future is very, very murky right now. And I think a lot of us have this sense that we are saying goodbye to a pre-COVID world and going to something very new. And it's caught up in the bigger metaphysics questions.
And ironically, as we move away from the age of reason, we seem to move into this age of technocracy, which is inherently scientific. So it seems like science and technology are pulling us away from reason when it seems like those two should be closely interwoven.
No, it's actually a very good question, or a comment about it as well. When you look at the technocracy, it is, for instance, the technocrats, they're all looking for the singularity. When we mix AI and technology into our body, and through that, we evolve to the next stage. We no longer are human, we're something else. That's what they're driving towards. Right. But even there, I see the same impulse. The impulse is it's really the original sin. I want to be like God. So you see that in the transgenderism. I don't like my body, I will change it. And that's what people say. You see it in, I make my own truth, all of that. But in the technocrats, what you see them saying is, the reason a planned society failed in the past is we didn't have enough information and we didn't have computers. And now we're going to create AI and we'll be able to fix everything. You will be broke, you won't own any property, but you'll be happy and we'll control it all. And so if you think about people, the megalomaniacs, the people that seek power, and for them, being like God is having the power, that's their tool. And we can see it taking place. The idea of vaccine passports, the controls that are coming in, all of the power that's been grabbed by government. And the whole time we're supposed to listen to the experts, listen to the experts, listen to the experts, listen to the experts. It's a dangerous world that we are in, and it's a very dangerous pursuit that they technocrats are after. It won't end well.
It truly is a counter enlightenment, because instead of saying, look, the average man is rational, the average person can think and reason, they're saying, no, you can't do any of that. We're going to develop advanced supercomputers that are capable of thoughts that you don't even know the right questions to ask. These supercomputers will have thoughts that are so advanced you couldn't even ponder the problems that they will solve. And we're giving the keys of our society over to a new God, as you suggest.
Exactly. If you look at the rise of science in the West, in the Christian West, it was understood part of the reason the advancement took place is because Christians in those times looked at the world, they looked at their religious beliefs, and they said, okay, we believe there's a God, and I see order in everything. Whether it's the form of trees or the wind, there's order, hierarchy, and order everywhere. And they saw it as part of God's plan for us to understand what was going on. Now, there were rebellions in there and different things like that, but initially it was, no, God gave us this earth and all of this, and it's made with order, and we can discover the order and live better and sort of glorify God in the pursuit of truth and trying to understand, how the cell works and mitochondria or supernovas, all of that. Now, to your point, we have, what I would argue C.S. Lewis called clever devils. They're well educated, but they're men without chests. And by that, it means they are not rooted to a natural order. They are not listening to, the soul and all of that. They are looking at it as, I want that, I will do it. I want power, I want money, and I'm smart enough to figure out how to do it. And, if you get in my way, I'm sorry, but you're just going to get squished.
Instead of approaching the world by saying, I am a perceptive organism and I'm going to go out and uncover the secrets of the things that surround me, they're saying, my perception is reality. I am order. I'm not trying to discover order. I create order. And that's where you have all these critical theories. You have the critical race theory. I'm going to create order through the lens of race. The critical gender theory. I'm going to create order through the lens of gender. It's a total inversion and a parody of what gave rise to our society.
It is. It in many ways is a perversion. It's you even see that actually in government and the pursuit of radical democracy and even socialism in that. And for conservatives, don't get too mad at me here, but even the idea of we, the people, are the source of power for our government is different than what it was prior to that in the West. It was, no, God is in charge, and it's God's order and laws that it's the monarchs in general duty to follow and pursue, that he has to rule, to lead, to serve in that order and in obedience to God. This is a whole different game now, a very different game.
Absolutely. I really like what you just did there. I'm going to pivot on that from sort of philosophy to politics. A lot of conservatives get very uncomfortable when you start questioning things like the functionality of democracy. If you start questioning things like radical laissez-faire capitalism, that seems like something that you're comfortable doing, a conversation that you're willing to have. Do you think that that's part of a growing trend? Because I seem to see more people having these conversations, but I can't tell if I'm seeking them out more or if it's happening more.
No, it's a growing trend. We're seeing it enormously at Charlemagne Institute. Folks are ordering Chronicles magazine, which is willing to ask these sorts of questions and offend people. And we have differing opinions. Just because it's in our magazine doesn't mean we agree with it. But we want discourse. We want that pursuit of truth. And yeah, to your point, I think that people are in a spot. They are looking around at a world, and especially for conservatives, and what we're hearing quite a bit is, you talk to conservatives, they, especially middle America, just normal Americans, maybe not even conservative outright, but of that, American tradition and principles, they feel betrayed. I think a lot of people feel betrayed, completely betrayed by the Republican establishment, whether it be at the state level or even at the national level. They feel betrayed by Con Inc., Conservative Inc., a lot of conservative guys out there. They said they were conservative. I mean, Bill Kristol, the Lincoln Project guys, all of these guys, we were in some ways fed a diet of gruel for 20 to 30 years. And the deeper questions weren't posed, because that would be a threat to some of the ideas, but mostly the power and wealth of certain individuals out there. And in that betrayal, in the chaos of COVID, in the fact that we've seen so many abuses by the deep state, we've seen, Republicans stab a Republican president in the back and almost seemingly work to take out a Republican president. Mm-hmm. People are saying, what is going on? I'm losing my country. I have no leadership. I need to understand what's happening. And it's a good thing, because it's forcing all of us to really go back to first principles. We have to ask ourselves some honest questions. Where does power come from? Mm-hmm. Who does power serve? And the questions go on and on and on. What's the foundation of society? Is it the individual or is it the family? Because that's two very different societies that you will create. And it's questions like that that we need to discuss. We need to debate. We need to try and pursue and understand these things if we're going to turn this situation around. So I'm seeing it. I get lots of calls from people calling in, hey, you guys are different. You ask questions that I can't just nod every page that I read or every website. You actually make me say, wait, and then I think about it, and I keep thinking about it, and that's a good thing. That's the pursuit of truth.
Absolutely. And if you're not having those conversations with those around you, if you're not engaging with that material, you need to read Intellectual Takeout. You need to look into Devin's work. You need to get on the train a little bit, because these are very important questions. But I'm wondering, as we try to answer these questions, how much will those answers be dictated by the new age? Because you talk about power. Where does power come from? Who does power serve? Well, the dynamics of power have been forever changed by things like the internet, by the technocracy. Do you think that these sort of older ideas that we might have about power, about family, about traditions can be properly moved into our new society? Or do you think that the end of the age invalidates a lot of what conservatives and people on the right might try to strive for?
That's a book that I could write several volumes of, and I'm not even a smart guy, so like lots of other people could do a much better job. But yeah, let me say this, that in the thinking through these things, as we look to where we are, there is no going back. For a lot of boomers, you dear boomers, you remember a world that Kyle and I never knew. Nope. I never knew this happy world where everybody's parents were married and everybody bowled together and everybody in the neighborhood went to the same church, because that was, the Lutheran side and the Catholic side and all, and the bowling and everything else together. You never had that. Never had it.
That seems like almost like watching a science fiction movie to me. Like when I look back at what America was in like the 50s, that is as foreign as like Star Trek. I wish it were true, but it's just so different from the modern lived experience. You're right. I don't mean to interrupt.
No. It totally is. And here's the thing is, I'm willing to bet a little bit of money, not a big better, but that this postmodern age is not going to last very long. But that's not a good thing either, because what we're seeing is just continuous growth of social chaos. And what do we expect if we tell everybody and teach kids for decades now that their truth is truth, that there is no objective moral order, that yes, you can be like God. Now we have 330 million people trying to be like God. I mean, it's a prescription for, and we wonder why our cities are burning and people are at each other's throats. So what is next though? And what do we deal with? That's the big question. And that's why we have to do the first principles. I can tell you that, in our work, especially when I started Intellectual Takeout, I was much more libertarian and sort of standard conservative. I watched all of our rhetoric go down in flames, all the typical limited government, free markets, limited government, free markets. And it didn't go anywhere once we started to win a very millennial audience, an audience that it was even 60% registered as an independent or a Democrat. And we learned, and I saw. And one of the things that we came to is that the conservatism of the last 30 years, the conning, maybe, even 40 years almost, it was divorced of the metaphysics. When you actually looked at it, it was divorced. It was, well, we're too embarrassed to talk about the metaphysics, but, free markets, it's good, and the individual matters, and he has dignity, and that's why he should be able to work and do whatever he wants. You can't do it. And what you see now is young Americans who are longing desperately to have a sense of community, to have a sense of tradition and principle, to have family, to have a love of their life, to share their life with. I mean, what I hear all the time is dating is miserable these days, and all kinds of confirmation that there's just atomized society, but it's that longing, that desire for a sense of purpose, the desire of a sense of security, and a desire of just a strong foundation that people can stand upon. And this, dying age and postmodern age and whatever it is, it's not giving it to anybody. And we wonder why suicides are through the roof, and anxiety and depression and mental health drugs. I saw one thing where it was, 20 something white girls, I guess, in one study, I think by Pew or something. It was 56% of them had at least one mental illness identified by a doctor. That's horrible. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. What kind of society creates a group of people, young white women, who generally are supposedly doing really well in life, that it's a woman's world, all of this, and the majority are miserable? So in that pursuit of fixing things, the grave danger is that we turn towards a Caesar of some sorts. And I'm not saying we're going to have, the emperor here, but we either have two choices. We go in a very different direction, and some of that might actually be turning around a little bit or angling a bit, or we go in the other, and which is a dangerous one. It's if the basis of our idea of a republic and freedom is that you govern the self. That's the original self-governing. You govern yourself. And by extension, if you can govern yourself, you can join in the governing of all of ourselves through that. But when you look around, nobody's been given the tools that they need to govern the self, to know, oh, yeah, I want to do that, but it's probably not a good thing. And impulse control, all these things. And so in that pursuit of people being hungry and wanting something different, I will be willing to bet we either have, again, somebody playing off of power and creating a very soft despotism to tell people you don't have to be scared anymore. Government or the technocrats, we will take care of it all. We'll take care of it for you. Still get to work and do those things, but it'll be a great life, and we've got you taken care of. If we don't go that route, the only other route that I've seen that's effective against this is a very old school Christianity. I don't want to say, more traditional, more smells and bells, more, whatever, cathedrals and made of stone and all the rest of it. And that's where I see fascinating things taking place. And that's where I do have hope that it's not going to be quick, but in several generations, I don't know how many decades, all of these young people whose parents have chosen that other route. They're getting a classical education. Sometimes it's homeschool, sometimes it's a private school, sometimes it's a charter school. A lot of them are now starting to come from bigger families. 2 used to be cool, and then was 3. Next thing you know, we've got all these conservative families popping up with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. I mean, and that's just how it is. I've got I got another one coming in July. So,
Congratulations.
but thank you. Right, and that'll be 20 years of marriage, and that's different for what's happening. But I see a lot of hope there, and I think it's that route that we have to think through and push forward with. But it requires hitting first principles and answering some of these basic but uncomfortable questions.
And I really want to echo that claim to our viewers. I'm definitely in the younger generation of conservatives, and myself and all my friends and everybody that I talk to is going down that road. We all started out as libertarians. We all thought Turning Point USA and libertarianism was great. And it took about 6 months of engaging with those ideas to realize that that's not fulfilling. That doesn't provide a foundation upon which you can build society. And now people are returning to Christianity. People are returning to traditional ideas in droves, and the left doesn't seem to know what to do with it, because it's really hard to label somebody who wants to, go to mass and participate in the Eucharist as a fascist. It falls outside a lot of their traditional labels, and sort of the handbook that they use to engage with people doesn't cover how do you deal with that type of person. I don't think they're prepared for it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of a blind side for them. And to your point, what you're seeing is that start to snowball, the snowball effect, where, back when I was, say in my teens, good golly, folks, it was only the Mormons who had like loads of kids, and grew up in San Diego, I had Mormon friends. It's just how it is if you're out there. But this is new, where you've got all of these families, many of whom the parents have never experienced a household with more than 1 or 2 kids, and yet suddenly they have a brood of 6 or 7, and they got a church van. And I think, again, it's authentic. It comes across as authentic. We're working very hard to raise good kids and well-educated kids, and it's hard to be going after our kids when they're out there in the real world doing well. They're making a living, they do well in school, all of these things. And I think that the left actually, they want to be able to attack the caricature that they've created of Christianity. But I think that there is a part that's actually scared of people who do that, because we're in a battle of wills. I will say that. The only thing that matters right now in this postmodern era is the will to power. And the left has it. And I think we all know and can recognize the left has the will to power. They will seize it, and they will hold on to it, and they will crush their opposition. There's no friendliness to it all. Whereas the other side's, we want to get power, but they don't know what to do. And I think that's because they don't have a positive vision of the future. The left has a vision for the future that they're telling everybody. It is for a younger generation to cast a vision. What does a Christian America, or like largely Christian yet free country, look like going forward in the technological age? It's actually pretty something that we should be excited to be talking about and thinking through and doing all of that. But what scares the left is the fact that we're changing how we live our lives. I mean, you're going hard against the currents of society if you have 5, 6, 7 kids. You're going hard against it, especially when you see most of these homeschool families, many of them, it's just the dad providing. And it is actually, I was talking to an individual, and he said, what's interesting is homeschooling is becoming elite. That you have to hit a certain level of just, life and ability to provide and all of that to be able to do it. And in that, which is the ultimate goal, is we need to create a new elite. Our kids need to be the new elite. Grandparents out there, get your kids to good schools. We need a new elite. And that's the only way I can see taking them on. But we have the will to power. And they know that because we changed how we lived. We're swimming full against them.
Yeah.
So,
power comes through organization, of course. And when you're looking at sort of the new right and these people that have these ideas, these people that want to reform their lives and sort of generate this positive vision of the future, who do you see as an emerging leader in this field, if any? Because I haven't identified really 1 or 2 people, but other than that, I haven't identified any strong leaders that everybody can look to as the person that will provide this vision.
I think that right now what we're seeing is the realization that we need the vision,
Yeah.
And we're also dealing with the questions. If you don't, you don't go into a test, and you certainly don't do something in the real world if you haven't fully prepared for it, especially if it could get you killed, and you know exactly what you're doing. And we don't have unity right now on those first principles. There are a lot of questions out there. Like Chronicles we got hit by American greatness because, we had a writer on who disagrees that America is just an idea, says it's a nation, a people. I tend to think it's kind of a mix of both an idea and a people. And that changes how you look at it. But until we answer those questions, whatever vision we build on top of it could all come crashing down, and we do it to ourselves because we didn't think things through enough. So I think that there are good people out there. There are good leaders. There are ones that are working to do this. I see it especially younger, but also with older folks that are there. There's a rethinking that's taking place. There's also a shifting of alliances. There used to be a lot of alliances that I knew about in the think tank world and conservative libertarian world, all of that. And those are shattering. And you're seeing something very interesting taking place, because you're finding that you have allies in strange places, and you have enemies who, used to be your best friend. And that's just how it goes. But we have to have the discussion. And we do have to start saying, like, this is what I want broadly. Like, I want most kids in America, almost all of them, actually, I do want all of them, might not be realistic, but, to be able to be in a strong family, to be able to, have mom and dad there, and being able to have that strength and that vitality and that bond and tradition, that, Burke's little platoon. To have that, it's a beautiful thing. So, okay, I like that idea. Well, how do we do it? What's justified? What about this? What about that? That's where we are right now. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. We're not at a phase yet where we can nominate one central leader and just roll with it. We have to figure out what we want that leader to embody, what the vision is that we want him to carry out, and then we can start singling in on, this is a good spokesperson for the message. I agree. So we've thoroughly covered what's going on the right. I want to touch briefly on the left. The left has done a fantastic job recently of consolidating their power, but I wonder if they're moving too quickly, because there's so many people that are interested in discussions like the one that we're having right now. What do you make of the left's performance?
That goes back to the quote that you shared at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Things are moving really fast, and they are brazen in the will to power. If you look at, for a lot of conservatives, your middle America, heartland conservatives, Trump taught us one thing that was very, very important. We could win.
Yeah.
And that I think is why the left hated him so much, is because a whole lot of people who thought we were already broken and shattered, we won. And then, there's big questions about the election, everything that's gone on between 2016 and now. And the left is driving fast and hard. And it's not just the left, it's the globalists that are in there as well, and the technocrats, all of that. And that's what does make me nervous, because these are smart people. These are people who have been pursuing a plan for a very, very long time. Over 100 years have been working to undermine, infiltrate, and termite into the United States of America and bring her to her knees. So these are people who have patience, and they're smart, dangerous, all of these things. Why are they moving so quickly now and taking the mask off? That's what I
wondered that, because it has to have taken so long to get all the pieces in position, because to be able to move this quickly, you have to own everything. So why wouldn't you just continue owning everything? Why would you cash it all in right now? What hand could they possibly be holding that's good enough to put their entire pot on the table? I don't get it. It's so confusing. And
no, amen, brother. You keep going, because I'm with you 100%.
Yeah,
you look, go on. Go on.
Well, it's a tremendous gamble for them, because if it backfires, they lose everything. They lose a
Mhm.
century of infiltrating institutions and of building power. If they, which means either that they're in a position where they have to act quickly, or they stand to lose it all. They see some threat that we're missing, or they're so confident that they can't lose, that they've locked it all down, that they're okay putting it all on the table. But I can't decide which one it is, because society is still too free for this to be a safe bet for them. But I don't see what's pushing them to act so quickly. There's no impending threat. So I don't get it. And I think you summarize this very well a couple paragraphs down in that article I was reading from earlier. You say, the international coordination of propaganda, rules, and responses should unsettle all of us. Consider the resources and influence required to get nearly all public health agencies, governments, media outlets, NGOs, and corporations working in unison around the world. You continue, personally, I know what it takes to coordinate simple messaging at the Charlemagne Institute. Whatever is behind the global coordination to reset our world must be incredibly well funded and staffed. And that's so true, because I don't mean to bash former President Donald Trump. I love Trump. I work for Trump. But he is literally a billionaire who is deplatformed, and the best he could come up with is that blog. He released a blog recently, and this is his final stand against big tech. I don't understand it. So if a former president billionaire can only come up with a one-page blog, imagine all the power and resources these people must have to run what they're literally calling the Great Reset. And if you have that much power, why aren't you just sitting like a dragon on your hoard of treasure? Why would you risk being so visible? Why would you show your hand? I don't get it. I'm just re-articulating the same point over and over, but I've been wondering this for a long time.
No, I wonder the same thing. I look at it and, I don't, COVID's real. It just, the reality though is for most of us, you had a 99.7 or 8 or just 99% survival rate.
Yeah.
But you look at how quickly, and I remember there was a part where I got very alarmed, is I was watching the stuff going on in China and then watching the stuff, then it went to Iran and then it popped up in Italy. And I talked to another friend, he was doing the same thing, watching to see how does Italy respond, because culturally we're much closer to the Italians than we would be the Iranians or the Chinese.
Of course. Yeah.
And Italy freaked out. And then you saw one European nation after another, just seemingly they turned on a dime. Something scared them enormously because they all turned on a dime and they all walked in lockstep. And I mean, I can go down the rabbit holes, but I won't do that because people will never take me take me seriously. No, but there's something even that it's we're in trouble when the nutters are being proven right way too often, like weekly, and you're looking at it and you're like that guy, or whoa, that guy seems a little, look at him. He's saying that all this is taking place and this vaccine is going to kill us all or this and that. And then we find out that women are having menstrual problems. And then it said, oh no, that's been debunked, except we know any alternative or different voice is being completely crushed and silenced. And again, to your point, why this grabbing of power at a global level? And I do think that this is one time to be honest with ourselves. We can all see something's happening. And like I said, it feels as if we are being herded into, corralled into something via fear and, just pressure and everything else. But mysterious to us, history is full of examples of individuals and groups who wanted to be great. And usually you conquered land to be great. If you look at the greats of the West, they had land, they conquering, they built an empire, things of that nature. Nothing in humanity has changed our nature since any thousands of years ago. We're just technologically advanced, but there are still always people out there who lust for power. And then there's the true megalomaniacs who say, I'm going to remake not America. I'm not going to remake Europe. I'm going to remake the entire world. I mean, that's for the history books. And I don't know, it is all strange, and the future is very murky, is what I would say. But you're right to question that. I do too.
I like that you turned to history there, because Alexander the Great, Hannibal, obviously on different sides, there's no reason that they had to do what they did. They
Mm-hmm.
both had massive power, and there was no
Mm-hmm.
reason for them to flex it. They just
Yep.
happened to be at the right place at the right time, and their humanity kicked in, and they ended up overextending. Maybe that's what we're seeing. Maybe it's as simple as that. I hope so. I hope it is. But there's
Yeah, the
another thing.
Kool-Aid effect, the fact that well, and that's one that worries me even for our side and for others, is because of all the censorship, we now are basically breaking into siloed camps of news based upon your political beliefs, religious beliefs, or whatever. And you're not getting the back and forth anymore. I mean, Twitter's boring, Facebook's very boring. There's no debate, there's no discussion, everything's crushed.
Mhm.
And the effect of that, though, is if you're the elite and you're the team that's winning and crushing everybody that's dissenting, the only thing you ever see is praise and good things. That's all you read. To you, everything is going really well, and the people are totally with them. That's the the perception that media creates. So there are a lot of parts of human psychology and behavior that are at play right now, but it doesn't smell right. Doesn't
No.
smell right.
Another
Not one.
theory that I've been thinking about, I think this comes from Hegel, but nobody crucify me if I'm wrong on that, nor am I a Hegelian by any stretch of the imagination. But he said that uh, power is self-perpetuating, and once you create a bureaucratic system or a powerful system, it will naturally grow and reproduce and extend into different areas on its own, like a colony of fungus. There's no central nervous system. It just kind of does what it wants to do. And I think that's the most terrifying possibility of all, is that there is no sort of like wizard behind all of this making these decisions. And if the system is doing something irrational, it probably is, because there's nobody at the controls. The deep state is not some small cabal of malevolent people. The deep state is just what bureaucracies do when they get this large. It's autonomous, and that's terrifying because it means that there's nobody that you can strike at to kill it. There is no central nervous system. And that both explains why the system does irrational things, like has this naked power grab, and it also explains why people like Trump are apparently unable to disable it.
Yeah, well, two things on that. One, I would say, culturally, if you look at the sort of globalists and all that, I do agree with you on a number of spots. The question is, in this situation, though, is it just bureaucratic elite groupthink?
Mhm.
But how did that groupthink spread through every culture in the world and
Yeah.
create the exact same policies? Not
Mhm.
totally, but that generally here, this is what's expected. Boom, boom, lock them down. Same rhetoric, same, propaganda, all of it. That's something, I think that's something even bigger than just a society, continuing on its way, or a cultural movement. That's the only reason that I question if it can be just the groupthink of the deep state, which you're right, it's gigantic.
That is a good point, though, because you actually have different groups doing the same thing. I mean, there's absolutely
Exactly.
no reason that Italy and America should be heading on the same trajectory. There's no reason that European and American media should be propagating the same messages. So that is a really compelling counterpoint.
Yeah, or India or China or
Yeah.
Iran or any number of places. Now the culture would, I believe, or not believe, but I would argue that belief is behind action. That really there is an action without belief. Even if you say, well, but what about your reflexes? It's because your body psychologically believes you're going to get hurt. You jump.
Right.
You may not have thought about it, but you're there. And yeah, it's just, you look at this mess, and it is easy to start to worry about things, and I've talked to people about this. I've talked with business leaders, very prominent folks in the community, in the area and nationally. And what I'm hearing is that this sense that you and I have, and I'm guessing almost everyone on this has, this sense of, impending doom, this heaviness that's on us. And the future's very murky. It's almost, it's like diabolical disorientation, just what's going on. And it's really hard to even plan and to see in this environment, for us. There's something going on. And the flip side is, though, in all of this craziness, you have, the globalist folks and the technocrats behind us putting out, 2-3 year plans of how we're going to get back. They have the future seemingly pretty well planned out, and it all works internationally. Whereas the rest of us are looking at things and they don't smell right, they don't look right. And you kind of just feel you're along for the ride.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You do feel like you're along for the ride. I mean, never before have people felt so devoid of agency. It doesn't feel like you can really accomplish anything. You can't even go to the grocery store and buy a gallon of milk without complying with several regulations along the way.
Exactly.
Now, for a society that's supposedly founded on individual self-governance, that failed. That's not working.
It does. And it's just, sometimes I don't want to go too doomy on everybody, but it's just, there's something not right about this. And, at the same time too, it's, the old song poem, How Green Was My Valley. I kind of have that sense that, it's the dying of an age, and we are a transitionary generation. And that's not easy. That part of this is us kind of detaching to say goodbye to a world that we know isn't coming back. And we're trying to figure out what does the new world look like? How do I plan? How do I look forward to anything? I mean, you're just sort of, okay, well, December, we'll see what it looks like then, So yeah, so for our listeners and stuff, you can look at it one way and be very depressed and overwhelmed. And I know how that feels. I think we all do. The other part of it, though, is to engage in the fight, and not just the fight, getting out there and, whatever, just waving signs, but really get into the fight. Take time to have discussions. Take time to build your local networks, the closest group of people that you can get, because it seems that it's probably going to be a good thing to have a network of friends that are in the real world and close by, as well as, of course, family. Work on repairing those rifts. Draw family closer. That's the way it used to be. The individual was protected by family, by community, by church, all in even county versus the state, and so on and so on. And the person was protected. We don't have that protection now. And that's what everybody's feeling. We're just, what is going on? So we have to rebuild. And to rebuild, we have to ask ourselves tough questions. And sometimes we have to let ourselves think through hard answers. And, think about these things, talk with people, build up your networks, build up the real world, go to church. If Catholic, go to confession, definitely go to confession, all that. So, God, I kind of, I don't want to be too down with everybody. Something strange is going on, and, well, we're blessed to be a part of it. I mean, this is going to be history that nobody's seen before, and it'll be interesting.
I completely agree that you need to look at the doom and then use that as a lesson to figure out what you need to do to prepare. But that very last thing that you said is we're going to be part of history. That's personally my take on this whole thing, because it's very easy as a guy in his early 20s to go, oh, our future has been stolen from us. Our nation is crumbling. Our God is disrespected in the streets. Woe is me. This is going to be the era of suffering. That's tempting. That's very tempting to do. But the alternative view is I'm very lucky to have been born at this historical crossroads. And I am a young man who has relatively solid resources. You know, if you're watching this broadcast right now, you have an internet access. That's fantastic. You can talk to people. You have your health still. You can still build wealth, even though it's becoming more difficult. You still have time to build some resources and figure out how you're going to, what your role will be in this fight. And it's really inspiring. If you look at sort of these forces of history coming together here and realizing that you're standing right in the middle of the crossroads, and it's going to be difficult, but you can help direct traffic a little bit if you want to, and if you have that will to power. So I personally feel blessed to live in this time. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, completely agreed. And I mean, again, at the same time, it's horrifying. I look at my 3-year-old and I'm like, well, when he's my age, what's the country going to look like? But that's also the inspiration. It is, no, I see what's going on around us, and I'm going to do my best to fight in the way, you know, God seems to see fit, or of my vocation or my status or place in life. And we all are going to need courage. And remember that courage is not the absence of fear. It is overcoming the fear to do what you know is right and just. And that's different. So, but yeah, gird up your loins, all of that business. But take time too to just enjoy the world as it is around us. Things are changing. It's okay to, you know, take a break too, and just go to a park or sit outside or play with your kids, whatever it is. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a fantastic little message of optimism. We sort of rounded this thing out very organically.
We almost hit the ground, but we pulled her up. And
we flared at the last second. Yeah, that's wonderful. If people want to continue following your work, if they want to get involved with the Charlemagne Institute, you mentioned you have a magazine. Yep. Where can they do that? What's the website? Where are the resources?
Just punch in Charlemagne Institute.org, and it'll pull you up to our Charlemagne Institute website. On there are links to Intellectual Takeout, as well as our print magazine, which is Chronicle. It's been published for over 40 years now. It's one of the powerhouses out there as far as actual, you know, intellectual, and it's unique because it's willing to ask the tough questions that even make some of us conservatives you know, a little bit nervous or make us have to think through things. So if you'd like to go down that road and you're willing to look at different ideas and see a debate play out in print, she's a good one for you. So join us there. You can get on our email list, you know, all the social media, all of that. So
100%. Yeah. Guess if you've enjoyed this conversation, please, you know, check out Intellectual Takeout, check out Chronicles, Google Devin Foley, get plugged into the social media. Devin, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I've really enjoyed it. To our viewers, thanks for tuning in again. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night and God bless.
Thank you.